We're here with Henry Marsh. He's a photographer from South Africa, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're just going to be going through, chatting with him, talking about his work, how he's lit stuff, all that stuff. So,
Oh, thanks for having me, man. So stoked to be here.
so what have you been working on?
Actually, my year is actually starting to wind down quite a bit. Work and things have started quieting down at the moment. But up until now, yeah, man, just been shooting a whole bunch of car launches. I do a lot of work for Porsche, Bentley, and Lamborghini. They're a group in South Africa, and
Nice.
they've just launched three new cars. So yeah, I suppose that's what's been keeping me busy for the most part for the last little while.
So, how does a car shoot work? Do you go on as just the photographer? Do you help with um, like all some of the pre-production stuff, like what you might need for lighting or any of that stuff?
So predominantly, so I don't know how the photography industry works where you are, but in South Africa, it's sort of like you kind of have to shoot everything because there's just not enough work to sort of niche down.
Hmm.
So in South Africa, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades kind of guy. So I shoot a lot of events and then a lot of commercial work and then a lot of portraits and a lot of fashion, that kind of stuff. But so with regards to the Porsche and Lamborghini and Bentley stuff, it's a lot of event stuff. So it's kind of like you rock up to a launch event. You might have a chat with the lighting guys beforehand, just being like what's going to happen when. And then yeah, you just shoot it as it goes, man, like very very documentary style. And then afterwards, if you've got a bit of time, you can obviously you can chat to the lighting guys and be like, hey, listen, can we light it like this, or can we do something over here? I want to like highlight certain aspects of the vehicle.
Hmm.
But for the most part, like in terms of the event stuff, it's very documentary, and you're just shooting what's there.
So you shoot like the unveiling of a car, like that's the event
Yeah,
type
yeah,
stuff.
exactly
But then you
that, exactly
also
that.
do you do like product photography as well of the
Yeah. So then
because
sometimes they'll come to you and they're like, cool, we've got this car. Like, so for instance, like, well, now in October we have what's called jacaranda season. So we've got a whole bunch of trees that blossom with really cool purple blossoms, purple flowers.
hmm.
And that's like a really, so Pretoria, where I'm from, where I stay, is called the Jacaranda City. So every year in October, the entire city just turns purple. So then Porsche will come to you and be like, hey, we really want to do like a campaign with a car and these purple flowers. Cool. So then there's a bit of a pre-production vibe to it, and then chat about where you want to go, how you want to do it, and I'll drive around and do a bit of a location scout. And then yeah, you just again you rock up at a certain time, you go to the certain places, and you shoot the crap out of a car.
Okay, so you're in like big productions then, right? It seems like. I mean, at least for
No,
a
so
car, right? Like you're what I mean, I'm trying to think. So what do you bring for gear? So okay, so let me go to like one of these shots. So
yeah.
this is a trade show, or this is an event shot, or is this a
So
product shot?
this is more a product shot. So this is a vehicle that we've placed on the floor in the showroom or the dealership, and
Hmm.
this is a car that this specific dealership is now spec'd out in what they call exclusive manufacture. So there's like a whole bunch of certain bits and pieces of the car that are completely different to what's normally spec'd on this vehicle. So then they'll
Okay.
get you and be like, cool, we've got this vehicle on the floor. Like, can we come and take photographs of it? This shoot, actually, I got there. I was there for something else. And they were like, "Oh, we have this car. Can we just quickly photograph it?" So I actually wasn't prepped. I didn't even have the right gear to shoot this car, man. Like 100%.
So this is like natural light or something?
Yeah, 100%. This is completely impromptu, man. This is shot with like a 16 to 35 mil lens, which is what I wouldn't in a million years shoot a car with that lens. But like, they're like, "Oh, you're here, just
Wow.
take photos of the car."
Dude, that looks really. I mean, did you go through and like adjust all the what is it, the perspective and all that stuff so there's no distortion and fisheye? You look at the white square below and it looks aligned correctly.
Yeah, so I think what I did, because obviously, so with cars, you actually want to be on like 50 mils and further. And so I think all I did was I actually just punched in on the camera, so put it into like a Super 35 mode, and so like you're cropping in on the sensor, so you don't have as much megapixels to deal with. But I mean, it's all going to social media, so who cares really?
Yeah.
And yeah, so then you're not dealing with like 60 mils of distortion. You're actually shooting at like a 50 mil perspective. But I mean, as you can see, there's not a lot of depth of field, or there's a lot of depth of field. It's not very shallow. So yeah.
But I think for this type of image, it looks really good. I mean, cars aren't usually shot at like a shallow depth of field, you know?
Yeah, 100%. But like, sometimes you want to try and get rid of some of the things in the background or something like that. But yeah, like a lot of this, I mean, all this is shot on the 16-35 film lens. Like, and that's what I had with me.
Okay. So this is all just, this isn't like a production shoot. This is you just kind of like winging it on that day. Dang,
100%.
That looks awesome. I'm looking at these things and I'm like, I should ask him what kind of gear he's took to this and how he lit this. And I was just on that day. What about something like this? Is this
So this is like on event day. This is like a launch, so the car would drive out, and then like there's like a whole spiel that happens. But in this specifically, I mean, you can go chat to the lighting guys beforehand. I mean, they've got a whole bunch of spots and like lights bouncing off the ceiling and that kind of stuff. And you're like, cool, I want to highlight certain sections of the vehicle, and then you can try and achieve that with a couple of guys who are on set.
Okay, so do you do a lot of like lighting and production work like in a studio with cars, or are you mostly you kind of show up and then like they've already been lit by like the event company type situation?
So I shoot a lot of, how do I explain it? I do a lot of like studio work, but it's not none of it is stuff that I can show online. So the stuff I do show online is more the kind of work that you're referring to as like it's a production company that's rocked up and set it up for an event.
But so is there? I mean, we can move on to like another type of photography. I was like super interested in your cars, just because like lighting cars is so it's big. It's not like tedious, but it's like big, and there's lots of gear. So I'm curious, like, can you talk about like what you bring to a car shoot? Are there any like visuals you can show we could like put up or anything?
So with car photography, it's all going to go. It's like anything, right? It's like any shoot that you end up doing. It's about the mood, what you're wanting to achieve with the shoot. So if you're wanting to be like super dramatic, you can work with like super harsh lights and like create like a bit of a silhouette or something like that. But generally, and this is going to work with most things. Is like you want like the softest imaginable lights, and so. Generally, when you're shooting cars, especially if you're shooting outside, and I suppose that's where most people would be, because like 99.9% of people are not going to have a studio where they can photograph a car. They're going to be shooting it outside. There's 3 times a day when you're going to shoot a car, and this is typical of like most things. Even if you're thinking about portraits, you're going to want to shoot it before the sun comes up. So like literally in that twilight time, just before the sun comes up, because you've got that like the sky is a gigantic softbox, and you've got that incredible even light. And you're going to want to shoot it just after the sun's gone down. Same story. And then you want to also shoot in the middle of the day, because if you think about it in terms of like a portrait, right? You want like the most flattering light is like fairly flat. You don't want it to be quite high. And so it's the same with the car, but the car's surface area is obviously above it. So when the sun is directly above the car, that is typically when the car is actually the most flattering. Well, the light is the most flattering for the car. So those are the 3 times a day that you want to be shooting a car outside. And typically, I mean, if you're shooting in the morning or in the evening, you don't have to work with lights unless you're trying to accentuate certain things. It's really only in the middle of the day that you can now start to bring in lights, because you want to be trying to balance the light almost. So, and again, like it all goes about like trying to accentuate certain parts of the car. So if you've got your camera on a tripod and you've got the whole car in focus and like with a beautiful backdrop, it might be a pitch black car, which is like, that's the most difficult thing to photograph in the whole wide world. So the darker the car, the more it reflects, which is it's just like kind of counterintuitive. So the darker the car, the more, yeah, exactly. So a black car is like the worst thing to photograph, because it just reflects absolutely everything. And so when you got that, you want to sort of like underexpose, and then you can use a light to sort of highlight certain aspects of it. So if you want to like highlight the headlights, or like the tires or something like that, or the rims rather, not the tires. Same really.
Sometimes
English is totally not my
cool.
first language.
Wait, what other languages do you speak?
I speak Afrikaans.
Nice, dude. How many languages do you speak?
No, I just speak two. I
Just
just speak two.
just two?
Yeah, just
Uh,
two. Yeah.
You're one ahead of me, dude. And you speak English. I mean, like, you don't seem like you don't speak English as a first language, so that's freaking
if
rad.
I if I mess up in Afrikaans, I'm like Afrikaans is not my first language, and if I mess up in English, I'm like English isn't my first language. Wait, I have a quick question though. So like I found your work through YouTube. Like I discovered your YouTube channel before I found your Instagram.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
like it's amazing. Yeah, and it's amazing because you're like the most down to earth guy, and like you just like break it down. You've got like your behind the scenes, or you're like how you shooting like what I think are incredible portraits of lovely looking people,
Mhm.
and it's really lovely to see like how you break it down. And you're like, well, I think what's great about your YouTube channel is like you're just like so chilled. You're like the most down to earth dude in the whole wide world. It's great.
Thanks, man. I feel like I'm super nervous and like way over chatty on stuff because, man, I could talk shop forever. So like sometimes I'll explain a thing, I'll just like go off on this like random tangent. I'm like, okay, I gotta redo that whole thing. So it's kind of nice that people are like, yeah, it's really concise and you did a good job explaining. I'm like, sweet. Um, so you do a lot of natural light, or you like 50-50 natural light and strobes, or because when I look down some of your stuff, I'm like, I feel like these are natural light. This is probably natural light. That's studio, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, your
So
natural light work seems awesome.
thanks, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think as photographers, we all kind of start with natural lights. I mean, no one knows what a flash is or how to use it when you get started.
Except for
So
me, I started. I think I bought a flash, and then I'm like, I'm gonna shoot, and then I never learned how to do natural light, and I suck at it.
no, but that's amazing though. Like that's because to me, when I got started, it was kind of like in South Africa, there was this massive boom of photographers, and it was just like everyone became a photographer. I mean, I think it's actually it's like this all over the world. Like everyone's a photographer. You know, everyone's got a cell phone that can do portrait mode. And I actually got into the off camera flash thing because I was like, no one else is doing this. No one else knows how to do this. So yeah, I shot a lot of natural lights, and someone like Danny Diamond was like a big, I don't know, idol.
Hmm.
But I got into the off camera flash, and anyone who knows me will tell you like I watch a crap ton of YouTube, and I think that's how I got into your YouTube channel is I just watch like all of like these off camera flash YouTube channels. And
That's
anyways,
awesome.
and what's cool about it in South Africa, especially with where I stay here in Gauteng, is I've sort of become like known as the lighting guy, and so I actually get hired just to do lighting on jobs. So I'm not even the photographer. I don't rock up with cameras or anything. I just rock up with lighting gear and set up lights for different photographers for big ass brands. Like we've done big stuff for Adidas, and for like Fila, and I mean there's like a whole bunch of brands where I'm literally just the lighting guy. So I thoroughly enjoy shooting natural light because I think it's just fun. You don't have to stress about things. You can just rock up and shoot. But lighting to me is really how I managed to find like a bit of a separation from the rest of the industry. Just because like you have to put a lot more effort into it. Like you have to
Hmm.
know what you're doing to set up lights. And people, I used to assist this commercial, like really 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 high end commercial photographer. And the first time I rocked up on set, this was the first time I'd met him as well. He kind of like I got a hold of him somehow, and I was like, "Hey, I want to be your assistant." And he's like, "Hey, cool, I've got a job happening on Thursday. Rock up." And I rocked up there, and he had this one of these Toyota FJ or FJ Cruisers, SJ Cruisers. I don't know. It's quite a big
FJ,
vehicle.
I think, yeah. If it's kind
FJ
of the newer
Cruiser,
one,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And he just opened up the boot, and there was just like it was just packed with gear. Like I'd never seen so much gear in my whole life. And I was like, cool, what are we packing out? And he's like, no, everything. And I was like, damn, okay, we're gonna be shooting a lot of stuff today. Cool. So just packed out everything, and I was like, cool, what am I setting up? And he's like, no, just set up everything. And there's like a bajillion, like I'm pretty sure there were like 10 light stands with like a light on top of each of them and like 10 different types of modifiers. And I was like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do with all this stuff? So, rock up, and we set all this stuff up and all the modifiers and all the lights, and he's like, cool, go put this light over there, that light over there, that light over there, that light over there, switch those two on. and switch the others on and just put them on their just have their modeling lights on. I was like, okay. And for that entire shoot, we just used 2 lights, but there were 8 other lights there with their modeling lamps on. And I was like, and afterwards I was like, look, dude, like I know we set these lights up, and I know that we didn't use them. Why? And he's like, no, because the client sees them. The client seems to think that the more lights we have, the more professional we are.
What? Seriously? That's freaking hilarious.
100%. So the more lights you have, the more professional you are, dude. And I took that lesson to heart. So like even like on shoots, I just arrive and I just set up like 3 or 4 lights, even if I'm shooting natural.
Dude, that whole story reminds me of like, like the big 80s hair bands that would show up with like stacks and stacks of guitar amplifiers. But if you really look behind the scenes, it's all like faces and none of them are actually, it's all just like wood paneling.
Yeah.
And then like one of them or 2 of them are plugged in. That's amazing. I gotta buy some just like broken lights. Maybe the modifier works and just like take a whole bunch out and do that.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll bet that guy's probably making a lot of money though, right?
100%. Like I think he moved to New Zealand and like had like a studio just offer him like a full-time job. Like, that's where he is now.
And then he's got a PA or somebody just packing out lights to turn them on. That's it, man. That's awesome. What camera do you use first off?
I currently shoot on two A92s, Sony A92s.
Nice.
And that's more because I actually shoot more than anything. And again, it's a lot of work that I can't show. I shoot a lot of motorsports for Porsche. So there's a racetrack close to where I say close to, like 45-minute drive from where I stay, and Porsche owns the racetrack, and so they have like a lot of client events where clients can just rock up in their cars and just race around the racetrack. And so I shoot a lot of that, and it's a lot of motorsports. So the Sony A92 is actually a sport camera. So yeah, that's what I have. But previously, I had a Sony A7 III, a Sony A7R3, and then before that, I was shooting Canon 5D4. So yeah, shot on a little bit of everything. I actually run around with a Fuji X100V. This thing's amazing. This thing
is that like, a digital or a film?
No, it's a mirrorless camera. Yeah, it's digital, but it looks pretty badass.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it looks like kind of vintage. Do you have a favorite lens? Do you have a certain amount of lenses or certain like favorites you take to a shoot?
So again, I'm because I shoot such a variety of things. Like I have everything. I mean, for motorsports, I'm shooting on a 200 to 600, which is incredible. That thing's lightning quick. But if I had to, past Henry would be like, I'm a 50mm guy, like a 50mm 1.4. Like the Canon 50mm 1.4 was like it rendered awful, but like it was beautiful in a way. It like had like a special characteristic to it, and that's the lens that I learned to shoot on. So like I don't know, 50mm just has like a special place in my heart. So like 50mm on a full frame, and yeah, I think that like if I were to reach for anything, that's what I would go for. Like it's just a 50mm on full frame. But now recently, since I've had this guy since Christmas last year, and so this is a 35mm equivalent, and I've really been enjoying like actually just shooting a little bit wider. You actually like, because you obviously have to get a little bit closer to your subjects, so it just feels like a little bit more intimate.
Is it a fixed lens, that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I've actually heard, you've probably heard that the 50mm is what mimics the human eye. But I've also heard 35 as well. I've heard both those schools of thought.
So I typically actually don't believe any of that. If you were to stare at something and you bring up like a 35, it's actually like what you're seeing in front of you and bring a 35 is actually going to be like further away. If you bring up a 50 is also, and if you bring up an 85 is actually like your perfect field of vision. Like that's actually like everything has got the exact same magnification rather. So like if I'm looking at this computer screen in front of me and I bring up an 85, like it's going to be the exact same size. But I think a lot of people, they tend to think like the 35 is like what the human eye seems to see, simply because of like old school street photographers. Because like that's what they used to shoot on is like a 35mm. You know, you would shoot on 35mm film and a 35mm lens, and like that was the thing.
I wonder if they'd leave the whole 35mm in frame, or if they'd crop into stuff, and maybe that started making people think.
I have no idea.
That's actually a great question. Huh.
That's a great
Which
question.
randomly, you said the 50 mil render's bad. What does that mean?
Oh,
Do you understand?
the 50 mil Canon 1.4 wasn't optically like a great lens, but
Okay.
it had like something like really special to it. Like I feel like today's lenses, and I think there's a couple of old school photographers that will agree with me, is like everything today is like so perfect. Like all these lenses that you get, like all the new stuff is like it's perfect. Like it doesn't flare, and like everything is just tack sharp, and like there's
Oh yeah.
absolutely nothing wrong with the lens, and so there's nothing special about it. Whereas like older lenses, like the old school filmed lenses from like 10, 20, 50 years ago, like they had something special about them. There was like a dreamy effect. Like it was soft, but
Uh
it
huh.
looked cool.
Have you seen like is it Cook or like some of these like high end cinema manufacturers will buy out like
Oh,
old
yes.
stock and then rehouse the glass in their own um, bodies or whatever, so you can put them on like the
Yeah, yeah,
Aris and
yeah.
junk.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's exactly for that. Is like the old school film lenses. They're just rendered so nicely. I mean, they're not perfect lenses. Like they're not tack sharp. They don't like they flare super easily. But like that's what made them special. Like that's what gave them that unique look. Was the fact that they weren't flawless.
Yeah, it makes me want to kind of go try some of those older lenses. Like I bought, what did I buy? I don't know if these are even older, but I bought.
Ooh, dope. Yes,
I
yes.
don't know what
Exactly.
year this is, but I bought it from somebody because it fits on a Micro Four Thirds, and I have the original Blackmagic pocket camera. Oh, it's a Rickanon. Hold on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you heard of that brand?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah,
Eh,
100%. That's like old school film vibes, man.
let's dive back into your Instagram. So this one, are you using like a slow shutter? How are you shooting this one?
Yeah, yeah. So this is actually I have to. This is three lights. So this is one strobe, and then two tube lights. And so I've got the camera. I think I've got the camera on a tripod over here. And
Mm-hmm.
then I've got two people, one person on the right hand side, one person on the left hand side, just moving tube lights. And then obviously the model's in a pose. And then I've got a flash strobe that's just freezing her in motion. And then obviously the lights is moving. So that's how you get that effect.
Do you put a lot of your settings or anything on your
I
Instagram?
think I used to, but then I just
Gets kind of
people then like
tedious.
start asking. Yeah, people start asking you, and it's like it kind of actually doesn't matter. Like as long as you understand the principles, like you know how to create an effect. Like at the end of the day, like if I shot at f5.6 or if I shot at f8, like who cares? It's about like cutting the ambient.
See, now you get that on my YouTube channel where I don't put a lot of the lights, which I'm kind of thinking maybe I will because sometimes I'm curious about the power of other people's lights, but I kind of go by the like if you know my shutter speed and you know my f stop and my ISO, you can start there and then like you can place your light and then you don't need a light meter. You can just, you turn the light on the face and if it's too bright, you turn it down. If it's too dark, you turn it up and then you set the next light. If it's too bright, turn it down. And then you mold your lights that way. And like
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
might be using a different, like a speed light and I'm using Godox. So me telling you the power and you just go and setting those ratios or just setting the
Yeah, it's
power
never gonna
exactly
work
is
out.
not
Yeah.
really going to give you the same shot. So I kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but then people are still like, what was your power? And I'm like, I don't remember to number one. And like number two, it only matters if we're shooting the identical light and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
modifier
And,
and distance.
it's the exact same place. Yeah.
This one is natural light, right?
Yeah, that's all natural lights. Yeah.
So
Jeez, I'm actually realizing
how,
now this chick has got like a six pack going on here.
yeah, dude, she's pretty ripped. How do you get your, how do you get your blacks that, are you crushing your blacks or do you still have detail?
So Austin, I have to be dead honest with you, man. Like I've been shooting professionally for 5 years, and the one thing I can't hack is editing, dude. Like, look
Yeah.
at this shot. You can clearly see it's photoshopped. Look at those trees in the background. They're all the same.
Oh, wait, did you, did you get rid of like a house or something?
Yeah, I got rid of something. But yeah, the one thing I just can't hack, dude. Like
Yeah, but
I can't like hack the whole fucking editing thing. So like it's like every single shoot I do, my edits look different. I just can't find a style that I seem to like. So like this, I specifically like I shot this knowing I wanted it to look like really filmy, and so
uh-huh.
like I just tried to like simulate like a I don't even like a Kodak Gold kind of vibe. And so like with a Kodak Gold, like the blacks are quite crushed. So,
Okay.
and like every shoot I do I've got like a different look in mind. And I actually said to someone the other day that it's the reason I'll never be famous is because I don't have like a unique, distinctive style. Like everything, if you look at my page, you'd think it's like a collab page of like 20 different photographers.
But I mean, what is style? Like, I feel like sometimes style is doing the same thing over and over, which does give you your recognizability or whatever, but it also kind of, it's not fun after a while for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, um, I don't know. I think it's awesome when you're doing different stuff because you still have your look and you still have like, you've done it and you've done it well. You know what I mean? Even though you've done something different. Cause like, yeah, this one here is pretty different than this one, but they're both done really well. And so I mean, like, I don't know where I'm going with this whole thing. It's just, I don't think you should try and like have your style to be famous. I think you should do it to do, well, I guess you should figure out what you're doing. Like if you want to be famous and yeah, do the same thing over and over. But if you want to like have fun, and which I feel like you're trying to do is like have fun and like do it for the passion, then do whatever the hell you want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like like I look at your work, and you can clearly see like Austin shot this. Like this is Austin's work, which and
Huh.
that's cool. Like and it's interesting to me. Like it's always something I've always wanted to strive towards, but I've just never been able to hit it. And I've had this conversation lots over the years. But yeah, like I think at the moment I've sort of just, as you say, like I shoot for a specific look. I'm really big on, I shoot for a lot of clients and I shoot to sort of bring their vision into
Uh-huh.
creation. And so if they're wanting to go for a certain look, like that's what I'm trying to go for. It's not necessarily about me. I'm pretty selfless in the sense of like my art isn't my art. It's like I want to sort of bring your vision to life.
That probably is the difference between you and I is because you shoot for work, I shoot for hobby. Like I have a real job. So everything you see on my Instagram is it's just what I want to do. So I guess that's maybe why mine can look like it has more of my style. Um but I'm not making money from it. So like there's that, you know.
Wait, so I'm curious. I'm curious. What do you do then for a living?
The job I'm working at now is a really good company, but like the work that I'm doing is like we'll shoot a thing and it just goes up onto Amazon, and it's just for somebody who's like scrolling through. It's like, oh, maybe they want this item. Let's try and do what we can to capture them or like grab their attention so they buy this item. So
Gotcha,
what
gotcha.
I'm doing for an everyday job is more kind of menial. Like we try to do the best we can. It's fun. I love the people I work with, but like the stuff we do is just kind of tedious and menial. So
Yeah,
like there's no real style that I can do. There's no real like I'm putting my own spin and passion into it. That's why I do the stuff on the weekends, because otherwise I think I did work with another photographer at this first job that put all their passion into that work. But if the manager is like, "Hey, we need to change this or this isn't working," it would drive them nuts because they're like, "I put all my time into this and like I don't want to change it. My heart's there." And it's just like, you can't do that for a job because you're working for
yeah,
the
yeah.
money. You're not working for the passion. So you got to have a side project that is your passion. And that's my long
No,
story.
dope, dude. That's amazing. That's amazing. It's so funny because I qualified as an engineer before I went into photography full time, and someone actually said to me, they were like exactly what you literally exactly what you've just said. They're like, dude, you're gonna go crazy if you do this for a living. And I was like, no, man, I'll follow my passion. It's gonna be great. Um, and like now here I am. Like it's I'm like it's the 5th of December, and I shot a wedding yesterday, and myself and the videographer know each other quite well, and we've shot a couple of things together before, and we're both just like, man, we're so jaded right now. We're just like so over it. Like yesterday was my last shoot for the year, and I'm like, I don't even want to see a camera for like the next 2 months, man. So
Yeah.
no, I'm a big proponent of telling people like, if you don't want to run your own business as a photographer, don't like just keep it as a passion. Just shoot
Yeah.
for yourself and do what you love. And go work and make money somehow, somewhere else, some other way. Like don't don't
Uh-huh.
don't make money from photography. It's not all glitz and glam.
There are some people. So there's a photographer that I follow. He's in the UK, or he's on some island near the UK. His name's Carl Taylor Photography. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but his work is phenomenal. So he does I subscribe to his like website or whatever. It's like $20 a month, and you just watch his live shows, and he'll light like a motorcycle, or he'll light
Oh,
a person, or
wait. I've seen his YouTube. Yeah.
so here,
Yes,
this
yes,
is
yes,
his
yes.
like,
Yeah.
and so I'm like sort of in the middle of like telling people about this. So I don't want to tell people because I'm like, I want to capture all those and be like, I know how to do this thing. And when I show up to a shoot, I'm like, yeah, let me just do this whole thing, which I learned from him. So on one hand, I'm like, I want to keep this secret. And then the other hand, I'm like, I want to tell people because I think he should be supported and he's a great artist and stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, I think I think he's found like a way to, he like mix the two. So he does what he wants to do. He takes only the jobs that
Yeah.
he wants to do that are a passion for him. And then he'll be like, we're lighting it this way. He'll work with like the pre-production and be like, okay, I think we should go this direction, use these
Yeah.
lights. So he kind of does it, but I think he has done a really good job of like blending the two, where he's like, I'm making good money and I'm also feeding my passion. I'm like, like 1% of the world really gets there with what they really want to do, which kind of sucks. But I mean, I'm jealous that he's actually done it.
Yeah, 100%. But I think he's also is like someone. I think he's, as you said, like he's a practicing photographer, like for years and years. Like he comes out of the film era. Like he was a hardcore commercial photographer before he went into like YouTube and teaching and stuff. So
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I'm sure he put in his dues. Let me ask you, because I'm curious about these lighting thingies. Hold on, where's my thingy? These, I love the light on this. So, like, how did you light this one? I mean, I'm like
yes.
bringing back stuff back. This is 47 weeks old.
So if I'm looking at this, knowing me, so you can see the shadow in his arm is quite harsh. So knowing me, this is probably just bare bulb. And then I've probably got like my studio spaces, which is where I'm at the moment. I mean, the walls are all white, so this is just harsh lights. This is just bare bulb, but obviously there's the entire studio is just white, so there's like a lot of natural sort of fill, so that's why it doesn't look too
Okay.
intense. And it's really just one light, and it's probably bare bulb.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you, I'm guessing you went through and just changed the background color to green?
No, this is actually I've actually got
Yeah.
this backdrop color in the
Oh, okay.
studio.
This is a seamless paper roll.
Yeah. Seamless
Oh,
paper.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I'm always afraid of hard light, kind of, because I always feel like it's going to be
That's the
super
thing.
harsh.
Mm.
I mean, you look at his face, like it kind of looks like, I don't know. There's a wraparound that looks like that he used somewhat of a scrim or a softbox too. But then you're right, the hard shadow on his arm screams hard light. So I don't know. Maybe I got to practice with it more.
So literally, as I said, like I mean, it's I like to. There's actually Clay Cook. He's also a really incredible fashion photographer, and he's done like one or two tutorials with f stoppers.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there's a scenario where he literally just bare bulb and he just places it as far away as possible. Because I mean, if you're bare bulb, it's already harsh, right? So I mean, the further
Uh-huh.
you place it away, it's just going to be super. It's just going to be harsh as much the same. But what the benefit of taking it far away is you get that even distribution of light, as well as like it's hitting the surface of everything in the room, which then sort of creates
Yeah.
like a natural fill.
Okay, so you have him. I'm guessing your
Yeah,
camera is facing this way, right?
yeah,
And then your background, which is forest green in
yeah,
this case. So you have your
yeah.
light just shining from like over here, right?
So you'd actually pull it further back, like
Or
into the
actually,
corner.
okay. So you're way back here ish.
Yes.
Okay. It's not.
Because
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
because like it's bare bulb, so it's going to be harsh light regardless of where you place it.
Mm-hmm.
Like bring it closer to your subject's only going to make it like the tiniest little bit softer. So, but the further away you bring it, the more even distribution of light you've got, as well as the light is now bouncing off of everything in the room, which creates like a natural fill.
So how far are your walls? Are they like right here? Or are they like further back from him?
So the studio
Is it pretty
space
close?
is it's like the space of a double garage, but like
Okay.
half of it is or like maybe like a third of it has a bathroom. I don't know if I can take you on like a mini
Let's do
studio
it.
tour. I don't know if this
Are
is
you
going to work.
are you wireless or are you plugged in? You could just tilt
I'm,
your
I'm a
camera or
little bit
something. I
plugged
don't know.
in, but well, I thought you guys see
Okay.
my spinning bike over there. But like, so
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
can see like the backdrop over there,
Oh, okay.
and then and so like I've got like a bit of a wooden floor vibe going on over there, and then so it's not massive. It's like it's technically it's 6 foot by 6 foot, but then like you see over here, there's a section over here which is a
Yeah.
bathroom, which is
So
like maybe like
okay,
so the shooting space is probably like 4 foot by 6 foot.
gotcha. So he's being lit by this. The walls are blue in this case. He's being lit
Yeah.
by this wall here, and then you've got that half bathroom there.
Yes.
That's
100%.
bouncing some of that light back up onto him as well.
Exactly.
Oh man. So do you use V flats and stuff pretty
I do. So
often?
you can actually see a couple of them
Ah,
over
there they
there.
are.
So polyboards. We don't get V flats in South Africa. We don't get all the fancy things that you guys get. You know.
Yeah. So you're using just like the polyboard as like the industrial material building stuff,
Yeah,
right?
literally just polystyrene that I've cut.
Dude, that's what I on my YouTube channel I made like a how to build a V flat or whatever, and I like um just bought like it's I don't even know how you pronounce it, but it's like the standard stuff you get it if you have Home Depots out there or whatever. Whatever your big box supply store is. Did that, cut down the top and like
Yeah.
taped it up. So like I don't know, you don't really need like the foam core because foam core
No,
is
dude.
actually pretty expensive.
No, literally. I mean, and like what's great about the studio is like it's white. One of my next investments is actually you can see the ceiling is all brown. It's like
Mm-hmm.
brown roof, like wooden roof. I actually want to invest in like putting up like white, like I don't know, some kind of white surfacing on the roof, because then the whole
Mm-hmm.
entire space just becomes white and you can bounce lights off of anywhere. But what's
Yeah.
really great is like you literally just bounce lights off the site. So like the most recent product shots that I did of that gin, if you look right at the top of the Instagram, that gin is literally just me. I mean, that's literally shot right here, and that's just a light straight into the wall.
And that creates like that huge softbox. Like it's a bigger softbox than
Exactly.
you could fit in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
room because you can use the whole entire wall as a gradient.
Yeah.
So yeah, small studios like that are actually pretty handy. You did
Thanks.
all the styling and stuff on that too.
No, I don't style, man. I'm
Oh,
a photographer.
cool.
I don't
So
no,
you bring in people. So for this shot, you have like a team of people you brought in.
so this was just myself and the stylist. This is
Okay,
just myself.
that's a
So
team, right?
this
Let's
we're a
call it
team. We're not a whole team.
Okay,
Um,
just the team. What constitutes as a whole team? Is that three people, or do you have to have? Where's the
yeah,
line on the
three or
whole
more.
team? So you and the
So
stylist are shooting this.
yeah, this is just myself and the stylist, and it's cool because we've actually done a lot of work together before as well. And so this is for a gin brand they're winning a whole bunch of awards, but they're like a little craft gin brand, and she's dating the guy who distills or like owns the company. And yeah, it's cool. So like literally, she just calls me up like 2 days before and like, hey, we've got some new stock. Can we shoot it?
Oh, that's cool.
And she's incredible because she styles for McDonald's. So it's like, she's pretty
Wow,
dope.
good for her.
That's insane. Yeah, 100%. I was like, what? If they ever run out of a photographer, like,
Dude, and that's where I was talking to somebody else. Like it's not what you know, it's who you know. Because someone was talking about how
absolutely.
some of the images weren't that great for I can't even remember, but like they were talking about how like they saw this ad and like the images weren't super great, and like then they heard it was like somebody's cousin's uncle's whatever, and I'm like, yeah, man, like you could shoot for Coke, not knowing or not have ever gone to school, but if you're pretty good, I mean, you have to be a certain level, but you don't have to be like as good as the next amazing guy. You just got to know who to talk to.
It's funny because I use the fact that I shoot for Porsche, Bentley, and Lamborghini is exactly that. I knew someone who worked for the company, and then I was waitering, or like I was literally waitering at an event, and I had my camera with me, and I took photographs of the CEO, and I was like, hey, here's a photograph. I printed it like and framed it, and I took it to him, and he was like, cool, you want to come take photos for us? And like now I've been shooting for them for 5 years.
That's amazing. Oh, it actually just led me to asking you what type of lights. Do you have like lights you use often, like your own lights? Do you rent stuff when you per shoot?
So I shoot. Okay, so as I mentioned, I shoot Sony A92s with all of the lenses, and then I've got two speed lights, two Godox 8600s, and two Godox 80. Did I say 200s? Well, I've got two 8200s and two
Uh-huh.
8600s. And that's my set. Like that's all the lighting that you could possibly ever want.
Yeah. So are your speed lights, are they Godox brand as well? I'm guessing.
Yep, yep, yep.
Nice. I'm glad to see you're a
Because
Godox user.
like everything, it all works together. So it's rare for me to have like six lights on set. So there's one of the shots there where it's also like a little bit of a shutter drag with like there's like three or four different colors. It's a girl with like
Which one?
red hair. It's also fairly high up on the there. So that one, yeah, there, like on the top of the screen right now. So this is six lights. So this is actually so like obviously there's constant lights to try and get the shutter drag. So I think I had four lights with different gels. So there's the two rim
Okay.
lights, and then there's the two lights coming from the front. So those are the four strobes. And then I had two tube lights, so constant lighting from the side as well. So it's a six lights to get this entire effect. So and like
So the
I personally like 90% of what I shoot is one light, and then you get like rare instances like this where you're like six lights in.
so you have a lighting on the shoulder, and then the other light. So kind of two cool color lights, and then you have a red light on her. It looks like there's another red
Yeah.
light on her hair, and
So if you
then
look at it, so if you've got the four corners, so from the back you've got that the green from the right, and if you're looking at the photograph now, so if you've got the
uh-huh.
green from the right and sort of like a purple from the back left, and then you've got
Yeah.
the sort of like it's like a teal from the front left and like a pink from the front right, and then
Okay.
we've got the orange tube lights from the left, and then I think it was sort of like a purpley color from the right.
So so there's four flashes and then two
Yeah,
constant
two
lights.
constants. Yeah,
Okay, cool. That looks awesome. Sometimes it's hard to tell that like people are using so many lights on a shoot.
yeah,
But also sometimes I feel like I'll see a shoot and people are like, I only used like two lights, but somehow like the wraparound makes it look like there's more, like maybe like you'll see something here and then under their chin like catches something like a little thingy, but
yeah.
I always think like maybe they shot another light underneath. But yeah, like that's why I'm always interested in breaking down people's lighting stuff, because I'm like, one light can sometimes appear as a couple, and then you can look at an image like this and there's like more than you think.
I think like most of the time, photographers also like to like they like to mess with their audience, right? So they'll say like, "Oh, we only used one light," but then they've got like a reflector or a polyboard or like natural light in the room, So like, there's one light.
On YouTube, like you see, or like f stoppers or something, like you see those like, see how this shot was lit with one light, and you're like, what? But like my pet peeve is like they'll do one light and then 16 mirrors or like a polyboard, or you know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah,
you don't, I mean, yes, it's lit with one light, but like the beginner photographer is going to look at that thing and be like, I want to watch this video because like I only have the budget for one light, or I only have one speed
yeah,
light. And then they're like, oh, but I need 17 reflectors and I got to go buy a bunch of mirrors and then all the stands to hold those. And like sometimes I'll be
yeah,
using those like
yeah.
Manfrotto arms and stuff. So I'm just like, that's what I try to do, at least with my YouTube, is not like mislead people
Mislead
into
people. Yeah.
like, yeah, like if I'm lighting with one light, I'll be like, it's one light and a couple of reflectors or something. And yes, that's a big pet peeve.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So like when you ask me like how did I that with that shot with the guy with the harsh light, because I can
Hmm.
clearly see like there's like a bit of fill, and I was like that's what I was trying to figure out, like how did I shoot this, because 99.9% of the time I'm shooting with on lights. I just like to keep it quite simple,
Hmm.
but and that's why I wanted to explain it to people, like you have to pull the light back so that it can bounce off of everything else to create the fill. Otherwise like people, you say, oh, you just use one harsh light, and then they put this harsh light like right here on this person's face, and they're like, oh, but I'm not getting the same effect. You sort
Yeah,
of have to, it's one light, but you also need to understand that one light is lighting up the whole room.
that's, man, that makes me actually kind of like mind opening right there, as to like when I start doing my YouTube or do more YouTube videos, I should actually maybe explain distance, because not putting the light ratio doesn't really matter, but like, yeah,
Mm.
distance will matter. So like,
Yeah.
because especially when you start, I mean, you probably know the inverse square law stuff. So like when you start factoring that
Yeah.
in, that makes a huge deal. This, sorry, I'm like keeping asking you a question. If you have to go, let me know.
I'm super chill, dude. It's a Sunday night. I got nowhere to go. Super chill.
Cool. This one, so like, I love this style, and I really want to create a shot that looks as good as this one day myself, because like it's just super pro. Like everything's sharp. So I'm curious, like your lighting and your retouching, because everything is sharp. It's really, really soft. Like the contrast is perfect, but there's not like the highlights aren't blown out. I don't know. Like this is just the epitome of perfect lighting and sharpness. So like, can you talk through this image? I don't know if you can how to break that down. Like, yeah, these are amazing.
So, Austin, like, I don't want to disappoint you. So I literally, this is a shoot through umbrella, off on the left hand side, and just with like,
Camera left.
yeah, camera left,
Okay.
and then I've got like a bit of a rim. I think I want to say it's Bearbell, but I'm looking at the shadows now, and it couldn't have been. So I can't imagine that I would have. This to me again is probably like what I like to do. Again, like I typically only like to use one light because flash is just like getting like flash ratios just like annoys the crap out of me. So what I typically like to do is I use one flash, and I get it to where I like it, and then I bring in a polyboard to fill. And so this to me is probably the same thing. So I've got a shoot through umbrella from camera left, from like just next to me, or like left slightly behind me. Because again, to me, I shoot a lot of fashion, and one of the biggest things with fashion, if you notice, it's actually quite a lot of harsh lights, and that's to bring out of a lot of texture, and you also need like quite an even distribution of lights. And so I actually end up placing my lights further away. You were talking about the inverse square law just now, so I end up placing my lights further away than you would probably typically think. So I've got a shoot through umbrella, camera left, a little bit further away than you'd probably think, and then I've got polyboard to fill in the rest, and that's genuinely how this was shot.
But so the light on her cheek here, that's not polyboard, is it? Or is that another light?
100%. So I'm trying to work this out because I'm also seeing that light on the right hand side, and I'm like,
but you don't see a light on her shoulder.
Yeah, and that's why I'm also like. I'm also trying to work it out as I'm looking at this. I'm pretty sure, like 90% sure that's just the fill from the polyboard. Because remember, because the umbrella is so far away, and with the inverse square law, you're actually getting quite a lot of light coming back from the polyboard.
Yeah, you're gonna have to power that up because you're probably using your 600 Pro here, right?
Yes, 100%.
And much as we talked about non-lighting powers, but I'm guessing you're probably at least a half power.
Yeah, it's like, because generally I shoot. So my camera settings generally are f8, 250th of a second, and ISO 200. So I push to 200 just so that my lights don't have to work as hard, because at f8, ISO 200 and 250th of a second, like you've cut the ambient, like it doesn't matter. So at ISO 200, you can. So typically, my lights are around like between 1/4 and 1/8, and I do that just to try and conserve. I shoot a lot. Like I'm like trigger happy.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Yeah, like a session for like this.
Well, for a catalog, that makes sense because you're just like going, right?
Yeah. So I typically shoot like a typical fashion session, like I'm shooting like 1,000 frames. So to try and conserve battery on the lights, I'm pushing the ISO like 200, maybe sometimes even 400, and that's literally just to bring the power down on the flash.
We'll have two questions then. So first off, how big is your umbrella that you're using? Is it like a standard, like a 36, 1 meter, I guess, for you?
Yeah 100 centimeter shoot through umbrella,
and it's lighting up. Man, that's so soft for an umbrella, and it's a shoot through, right? You said.
Yep. So you can see with the shadow that's like the hat is casting. It's not that soft. It's not. It's like it's soft, but it's not that soft.
The whole image just looks just creamy and smooth, but also like sharp. I don't know. Like I did so. It's such a portrait. You know what I mean? Like it's such a good image. I
Thank
don't know.
you.
I'm
Thank you
in,
very much. I appreciate it. So
yeah.
like a lot of it. I'm going to be honest with you. So it's the even distribution of lights. So bringing that light
Yeah.
a little bit
Okay.
further than you would think.
Maybe
So
that's what
that's
I'm
the even
thinking. Is
distribution of lights. And then makeup plays a big role. And then obviously the
yeah.
retouch.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking at this and I'm like, damn, I spent a lot of time on this. I don't spend nearly as much time as this on my retouches anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking at this and I was like, I can't believe I spent an hour retouching this, because this is typically like what I used to do. I used to retouch quite a lot, and I can see like I spent quite a lot of time on this. So it's those three things. It's even distribution of lights, it's the makeup, and then just
Uh-huh.
a lot of time in retouch.
I think that's the thing
Yeah,
is I'm looking at that I think it's creamy is the even. So I mean, are you adding like a sharpening?
grain,
You
grain,
add grain, and
grain.
that just
Yeah.
like noise at like a what 5 or 10% or something.
No, so I typically do my grain in Lightroom.
Oh, that's all the sharpening you do.
Yeah. So
Huh.
my Lightroom's got like its default setting, which I think is like sharpening is like 40, and then you take it to Photoshop and you do your retouching, and then
Round trip.
whatever that round trip. Thank you,
Yeah.
round trip it back to Lightroom. English is not my first language. I told you. And then round trip it back to Lightroom, and then I typically my grain settings are like 15. So I'm going to pull up. I'm hoping this doesn't crash everything. I'm going to pull up Lightroom quickly. So if you go to effects and you've got grain, so it's amount. I've typically got it on 15. Size is 50, 50, and roughness at 80. And like that's my grain settings for everything. And and again, like this is probably shot at f8, ISO 200, and shutter speed of 1/250th of a second. So like
Nice.
that's like my go-to for everything.
So that other question that I was going to bring up, do you? So you say you're shooting fast. Um, do you shoot like how many images per outfit are you shooting? Like, are you shooting like 100, 200 images per outfit before they change, or do you like?
So I can tell you right now, because I did a test shoot this week. So I typically do 6 looks. This is
Uh-huh.
500 images, and we did this in an hour and a half.
Dude, that's fast. So you just have one lighting setup.
So typically in my studio, like I know my studio space super, super, super well. So like
Uh-huh.
whilst the model is busy getting changed, I can change backdrop, lighting setup, and have it done by the time she comes out.
Uh-huh.
And so like I do 6 looks, 6 different lighting, and maybe like 2 or 3 different backdrops.
So you're doing
Backdrops.
roughly, you're doing roughly 100 images per outfit, right? Seems like.
Yeah. Probably, yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you change
100%.
your lighting dramatically between looks?
So it's all going to depend again on like what vibe I'm going for, like what mood I'm going for. If it's
Mm.
like super dramatic, then if we're going from like super high key, airy fairy to something very, very dramatic, obviously then that changes quite a bit. But like generally what I like to do is I'll send out a mood board to a model. If it's a test shoot now that I'm doing in studio, I'll send out a mood board to a model and be like, this is what I want to try and achieve. She'll rock up on the day. We'll pick out a whole bunch of garments that she's brought with her, a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of looks that she's brought, and we're like, cool, we're going to use this look for this, this look for this, this look for this, this look for this. And we'll go from one spectrum to the other. So we'll go from like super light and airy on this spectrum all the way to dark and moody. And then the lighting will change intermittently, sort of like step by step until that point.
Okay. So when I shoot, I'm like just dicking around with stuff. Like I kind of know, but like if someone comes at me with like, hey, I want to do this thing, I'm like, okay, I can break that down. But if it's like, hey, let's just shoot, which a lot of my shoots are because it's just fun and like I like to play with gear and test things. I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. Like for a little bit, like I'll set a light here and be like, nah, I don't really love that with this. And so then I move it all around. Like, do you have like we're gonna go with this, and then I'm gonna set the light here, and then we're moving on to this, and I'm gonna move this here, and then change this modifier. Do you have like that all specked out for
Yeah.
your shoot?
Generally, yeah. So again, because I mean, I've been shooting in the studio space for 5 or 6 years, so I know it really well, and I know it. I know exactly. I know roughly what I want to do and how to achieve it. There'll be very rare, like that shoot where I showed you the six lights. Like that was something where I had to sit down and like work it out, and I'm like, cool,
Mm-hmm.
you sit there. and let me work this out for the next 10 or 15 minutes. And then, the model is like sitting there and picking a nose or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Um, but most of the time it's like if I've got the reference image in mind, like I've taken the mental time beforehand to try and deconstruct how it was done, or like how I want to create this. And then
Uh-huh.
it's just a case of like, you're just like finessing it when you've got like, so you whilst the model is busy changing, I've got the lights set up how I think it should be, and then the model comes in places, and then it's like, cool, you've got to now work out the light power and then just finesse the lights placement.
Mm-hmm.
So you do take probably like, I probably taken probably like on average like 10 shots just to get my light to where I want it to be per look.
Where did you learn how to do photography? Like, did you just watch YouTube videos, or did you?
Yep.
Nice.
YouTube,
Do
man.
you do you feel like you can see, like you can kind of, you've done it long enough, you can kind of tell what a modifier is going to do, what kind of look it's going to give
Oh
you
yeah.
beforehand?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So like, what my friends before COVID, when we were still allowed to go to malls in groups,
Uh-huh.
my friends would get really frustrated with me because I would just stop outside like these big, the big window banners, and I would try and deconstruct like how these photographs are taken, and a lot of it you can tell by like catch lights in the eyes, and obviously, I mean, these
Uh-huh.
photographs are printed massive, so I mean, you can get up like really like close to the eyeball and see like
Look like the biggest
how.
weirdo.
Yeah, that's really. I think people
Yeah.
think I'm the biggest creep because I mean, obviously, 90% of what's blown up on these big freaking window displays are like pretty girls. I think people
Uh-huh.
think I'm the biggest creep.
I've been there,
Um,
man.
but like you can just deconstruct so much by just looking at like shadow and catch lights. Like obviously shadow you can see if it's a harsh light, and catch light you can see exactly what sort of type of light. And so just from doing that like all day every day, and also obviously on Instagram as well, like if you just take the moment just to like just stop on a specific photograph to see like how was this taken, and just deconstruct it, like look at the
Mhm.
colors, look at the shadow, look at the lights, and look what it's doing, look where it's coming from. You can already start to like deconstruct how an image was taken, and just from doing that for like a whole bunch of years, you can already start to tell like, oh, I know I want to use a beauty dish that's really close up, or I know I want to reflect my light off of a massive wall because it needs to be super soft. You sort of
Mhm.
get like to a base understanding of how something was achieved and why you want to achieve it in that way, and then it just comes down to like finessing it and like moving a light like a couple meters this way or a couple meters that way.
Yeah. That's where like I can break down an image and be like, I can look at it and I can see that it's shot with this or that. But man, when I get on set, sometimes I just like, maybe I'm my own worst enemy with gear where I'm like, let's put this in here. Let's see what this looks like. And then I'm just like, nah, that doesn't look anything like what I want it to look like. And so I have to like break it down and then restart. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if a lot of people do that or if it's just me, but like I sometimes, yeah, I'll get on set. I'm like, did I really want a big light? Like, this isn't working like what I want. And then I'll put on like a beauty dish. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe that's like a thing that people have.
I think one of the biggest learning moments for me, I used to, as I mentioned earlier, I used to assist this big time commercial photographer, and he looked at my work and he's like that's good, it's nice, but it's too perfect. And I was like, what does that,
Hmm.
what does that even mean? And he's like, you get to a certain point in your career of like when you've just shot like a crap ton where you almost like you almost seek, it's almost like the lens thing from earlier. You always seek the imperfection. You get to a point where you're like, the light is good enough where it is and you work around it. It's not like oh, I'm going to spend the next hour perfecting my lighting. It's like, cool, the lighting is good enough where it is. Now we're actually just going to focus on crafting the image. And I think you get to that sort of point where it's like, cool, the lighting works for what we wanted to do. Yes, I can spend another hour perfecting it and getting it in perfect angle and like the perfect light distribution and like that it's not hitting the background and all that kind of stuff. But it's almost like the imperfection makes the image. And I think that's also like what I've started to like, where I've now probably only now in the last 6 months of my own photographic career, like started getting to a point where I'm like, I can get to light to where it's like 90% where I want it to be. And that 90% is good enough for me because like the rest of it is now I know is about crafting the image and not about the light.
That's deep. I like that. That's I think I'm a perfectionist, so like I'm like I got to get that sliver light off the back wall. I gotta maybe I gotta like think about that more as like um not making it look so perfect and just like getting the image. That's deep. I want to thank Henry Marsh for being on. Henry, do you have a website you want to plug or anything?
So it's actually funny. I'm actually like in a bit of a transitional time, so I don't really have a website. But if you guys want to check me out, I'm just Henry Marsh 15 on the gram, and
Cool.
that's where you can find most of my most up to date work and life. And yeah, come to South Africa, man. It's a vibe.